Hi, kids. Welcome to the second episode of the Godfather series. But I want to make a couple of announcements. This is not what I plan on speaking on, but it's germane to the whole program, really. And since I filmed the last one, which was just a week ago, I guess, we've had two additions, possibly three, but I'm only going to talk about two additions to the Hall of Fame. One in the United States and one in an area of the world that you shouldn't be able to do this in. We will be having ceremonies for the addition of these two, both gentlemen, both minorities, I might add, later on in the year. One of which is, I believe, attending the hardcore in December. So his award ceremony will be in December. But pretty remarkable during the Corona time. Now, all their transactions weren't done in Corona, but a number of them were done in Corona, and they just, kept their head down and just charged ahead. One of which went to the seminar 5 years ago, August, 5.5 years ago, and one of which went to the seminar 3 years ago, April, 3 years ago last month. The one broke the mentee record for the most EBITDA registered by a mentee since the program's been around almost 28 years. In a few days, it'll be 28 years. So it had a grand total in 36 months of $32.5 million. That's pretty fucking remarkable. I can't find superlatives to describe it. And as we get towards the end of the year, I'm putting it up on social media in the next few hours, but it's pretty darn remarkable to create $32.5 million in EBITDA. And these are numbers that were put together by a Big Four accounting firm. So they're not Fig Newton of his imagination or my imagination. It's pretty damn, I'm not sure what multiple to put on it. If I put a multiple of 10 or 12, the numbers are too horrifically large, and you won't believe me. If I put a multiple of 5, that's 150 million, but that's too low. So I'm going to leave it to your intuition and judgment to decide which multiple to put on it. The second announcement I want to make is that as I sit down to film this in my pub, Bitcoin, or as I like to refer to it, Bitfuck, has collapsed, not collapsed down to zero, but had a rough last 72 hours, some of which has to do with Mr. Musk, on again, off again, on again about cryptocurrency, some of which has to do with they're not asleep anymore to how Bitcoin is made and who's the biggest producer of Bitcoin is, which is China. But anyway, it was about $33,000 or $36,000 as I sit down here. But as I said, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride. That is neither it is not a recommendation to buy more or to sell. It's just enjoy the ride. There's a lot of people that have come out that it's lunacy, and there's just as many people that think it's the second coming of Christ. But be aware. But unfortunately, like most new investment endeavors, the people that make the most money are the wealthy people, and the people that get hurt the most are the poor people. I wish that wasn't the case. Okay, now let's get back to our schedule. Now, remember, this QLA Godfather series is, and I plan on doing these once a month, maybe a little more often, are to give you the background, although, as I said in the first series, which you haven't seen all of them yet, that I get told countless times that I've read everything there is on the website. I've read everything there is, or listened to everything on YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Well, I know you haven't. So this series is one, to fill in the gaps that you may or may not know, and two, in one or two more episodes, to interview some of not the very best we have, but some of the good guys and gals that we have and how they've succeeded and the trials and tribulations that they've had. Some of the speed bumps they've had that they thought were fucking Mount Everest. It's also, if we're fortunate enough, I haven't yet been able to contact anybody that has, taken 10, 12 years to do QLA, but hopefully one or more, there's only a few of them, will talk to you and say if they had it to do over again, how they could cut 12 years into 6 years or 12 years into, 4 years. And the two people that I just described, the Hall of Famers, one has a little over 5 years and one is exactly 3 years. So it doesn't need to take you that long. So that's what the series is about. And it's like there used to be a TV program on, I believe it was CBS years ago, and they show a picture of Manhattan from the air. And then this is New York City, and there's 8 million, people living in New York City, and there's 8 million stories. Well, we don't have 8 million stories, but we've got a lot of stories. And remember, QLA was developed by me, borrowing from Andrew Carnegie, to start with no money, to create as much money as humanly possible with no money and no equity partners using commercial debt. Now, what was the basis of, I posted a picture on social media maybe a month ago. And it was a picture of me as a 17-year-old senior in high school. And I was a pretty good-looking kid. I was big and tall. When I figured out that not only was I smarter than most people, but I was better looking than most people, I used that leverage to both, chase girls and then in later years make money. But most of us have shitty self-esteem. I'm including myself in this group, even though I have great self-esteem, and I have had great self-esteem since I can remember. But how did I get that great self-esteem? Well, show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. Your friends that you hang with or chill with now are a basis of an extension of your family. When you grow up, most people have a mom, maybe a dad, an older brother, a sister, a grandparent. Now, what do they know about self-esteem, and what do they know about building a money-making machine? They don't know much, unless you're blessed to be one of the Carnegies years ago or one of the Rockefellers. So my dad was a superhero. I didn't know he was a superhero when I was growing up because all of his friends were alpha males. I thought that everybody was an alpha male. I didn't know what alpha male meant. But I was super fortunate to have a dad like that who had served in 2 wars, who just, and most young boys and most of the young men listening to this and gals want to emulate a parent. And most of the time, that parent that you emulate is your father. But my dad didn't have a dad. My father's father, my grandfather, died during the last pandemic of 1918. And so my dad just treated me like an adult, more or less. But he also expected me to react to real life situations like an adult. And when you're 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 years old, you don't react to situations like an adult. For those of you that remember, occasionally you get a 15-year-old, that we have a phenom kid right now from Atlanta, Georgia, who's 15 years old, who's following the QLA methodology, who sounds like he's 35. Well, that happens once in a while, once or twice a generation. So because he treated me like an adult, he expected me to act like an adult, and he held me accountable like an adult. And so I didn't like it, and I rebelled. And one of the things that came out in the documentary interviews and the newspaper interviews that I've already alluded to is the fact that I rebelled against my father and his, what I considered negative methodology of how he treated me. In hindsight, he just treated me like an adult, and I wasn't ready to be treated like an adult. So what did I do? I went exactly the opposite way, and I acted like an asshole kid. But there's certain things that I remember growing up. I remember when I was 6 years old or 7 years old, my mother and I went to Europe to meet my father during the Korean War when he was on leave. And he had said that he was going to meet us in Le Havre. Now, this is on my website, but very few people read. Dan does the unusual. And so he met us in Le Havre, and my mother and I get off the boat. Of course, this is pre-corona and all that. And my dad, I go up to hug my dad like this. Now, remember, I'm 6 years old, about, and so my arms are around his bottom part of his waist. And I pull my arms back, and I see that they're all bloody. So, no, this is before a lot of the horror movies, 3D horror movies, so I don't know what the fuck happened. But my dad had surgery that morning where they took out a tumor out of his back that was supposedly the size of a cantaloupe. They had him stitch him up. He had only local anesthetic. And because he had promised me that he would be there to meet me at the boat. Now, growing up, we're all let down by our parents. But one of the first things that I can remember is not being let down. So that transferred into my learning curve. Well, you can't let down people. When you tell people you're going to do some shit, you do it, even if it's inconvenient. Was it inconvenient for my dad to come to the dock in Le Havre? By the way, Verdun to Le Havre is 600 kilometers. He had to drive with, bleeding from his back. But that's how I grew up. And so when I told one of my schoolyard friends or one of my friends in junior high school or high school that I was going to do something or I was going to be there, I fucking was, even if it was inconvenient. It's convenient to tell people you're going to do things when it's convenient, but then life happens and it becomes inconvenient, I should say. During that same era, and it's probably the way, part of the reason that I act the way I do is, as a young 6 or 7 year old, I saw my first dead body, which was a horrific experience. But it's what happens to you as you're growing up that hones the adult that you have become. Now, I've said before, we have people in the seminar that have never been yelled at. We have people attending the seminar that have never been physically disciplined, spanked, or hit. We have people that attend the seminar that have never been in a schoolyard fight, which I can't imagine that. I just can't. Going through grammar school, junior high school, and high school, never been in a fight with anybody. I just can't. Okay. We have people that have attended the seminar that the first time anybody's ever yelled at them is me. I.e., we have people cry in the seminar. I.e., we have people piss their pants in the seminar. I.e., we have, not in recent years, we have people shit their pants in the seminar. Now, a year ago, January, when Brian QLA Rose attended, and I'm not going to tell you he pissed his pants or shit or cried, but when he attended the QLA Hardcore, the guy sitting to his right, as I recall, collapsed in a seizure on top of Brian on his seat, knocking Brian out of his seat and regurgitating on Brian's new suit. Now, until that happened, Brian had always been skeptical about any of these things happening in the seminar. Well, for those of you that follow Brian, and many of you do, you might ask him in an email if that's not true, and I tell you for sure it is true.